Good morning, Madam Chair. Yes, you are all set.
Okay, thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting of Community Planning and Economic Development to order. Today is January 15th, and it is 8:01 a.m. I'll just quickly go through. We have committee members, Deputy Mayor Ben Winograd, and Council Member Alberto Cortez, Council Member Deb Poland, Barry Walters, Mary Fay, Dwayne Martin, Todd Dumay, Gina, and our town manager. Oh, Rick Ledwith. I see that the Mayor Cantor has just joined us. The first thing that I'd like to do is approve the minutes for the 11/20/24 meeting and the 12/18/24 meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Those minutes are approved. Our next agenda item B, amusement devices, possible amendment to zoning ordinance in chapter 177. And I will let our town manager, Mr. Ledwith, take it from here.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, everyone. Great to see everyone. First up, we'd like to discuss a proposed amendment to our zoning ordinance that would allow a pool table as a permitted use in a restaurant. Over the last year or 2 years, our town planner and our economic development team have received requests from restaurants questioning the use of a pool table in their establishment, and currently under our zoning ordinances, they would not be a permitted use. So we do believe that this type of consideration would appeal to our local dining establishments. We also feel it would, continue to maintain alignment with our POCD. So through you, Madam Chair, I will turn it over to our town planner, Todd Dumay, who can give us a quick summary of our ordinance and what we would propose amending to our current ordinance, and having that discussion with our Community Planning and Economic Development Committee, answer any questions or concerns that you may have. Should you agree with moving forward with this, we would amend through our Corporation Counsel's office our present ordinance, bring it forward to a town council meeting to be set for a public hearing at a future date. So again, through you, Madam Chair, I'll turn it over to our town planner, Mr. Dumay.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith, and I apologize, I cannot get my camera to work. Can everyone hear me?
We can.
Thank you. So as the town manager indicated, we have an ordinance on the books since the late 70s and early 80s that prohibits a number of devices, amusement devices. We define amusement devices within our zoning ordinance, and we define those as mechanical, electronic, or other devices used to be operated for entertainment or as game for any type of paid for play. And within zoning, there are a number of uses or devices that are excluded from that definition as being a permissible type of accessory use. And pool tables are one of those uses. They're not defined elsewhere in the zoning ordinances, and they're not permitted elsewhere as an accessory use, with the exception of allowing billiards as part of an indoor recreation amusement facility, but that's a primary use. So as the manager indicated, we've received several inquiries over the past few years of different commercial operators, in this case, mostly restaurants, interested in adding pool tables to their establishments. And we don't have a mechanism to do it. So we were hoping to gauge CPED and the council on willingness to entertain an amendment to at least this section of the zoning ordinance for definitions, but also to the section that deals with governing amusement devices under the ordinance, which is 17731, which provides for a allowed density of amusement devices per commercial establishment and sets a required floor area. And then in doing so, staff had looked at other places in our town code, in this case outside of zoning, that also deal with amusement devices. In chapter 47, called Amusement Devices, actually provides for a process and a licensing requirement through the police department to own and operate an amusement device in the community. We're not sure that that needs to be on the books, but we would need to do a little bit more research, discuss with the PD if the council is willing to entertain an ordinance change generally, and then we'd come back with a more detailed set of amendments to kind of modernize this section of our zoning and other code. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Dumais. Through you, Madam Chair, we'll turn it back to you and the committee members and council for thoughts, questions, comments.
Are there any questions from our committee members? Deputy Mayor Winograd?
So, well, not really, well, partly a question, but so, I mean, I appreciate the effort to sort of modernize some of these rules. So where are we with, so I see the pool table that we want to add in. What else is there in terms of, in this review that seems out of date? Pinball machine, can you not have a pinball machine? Is that something that you need a license? I mean, I know the other, you know, as you're going through it, are there other things you want to try to update?
That's a great question, Deputy Mayor. Mr. Dumais, any thoughts outside of the pool table discussion?
Yes, Mr. Manager, through you to Councilor Winograd. The defined set of excluded uses as part of an amusement device set, I think we would look at all of them, Councilor Winograd. For instance, the one that pops out is a jukebox. You know, why do we exclude having a jukebox as part of a device that could be allowed at an establishment? There are a couple of others that we permit elsewhere under a different zoning set of ordinances. They were just put in this section to exclude them from being counted. But the thought would be to look at them comprehensively and bring a list back of suggested changes or updates to see if it makes sense. We probably also need to look at the indoor amusement recreation ordinance itself, just to make sure we're not excluding or double counting items. When reading this section of Chapter 47 for amusement devices, if you read what's required as part of that, it begs the question of, now that we have our first approved indoor recreation facility at level 99, it's not constructed, it's not in operation, but if you read the requirements for licensure and the fee associated with an individual device, it would seem to me that, you know, the potential for that establishment, once it comes online, they'd have to pay $60 per device in that very large floor plate. I don't think that was the intent of us creating an indoor recreation amusement ordinance, and I'm not sure that Chapter 47 is really necessary today. If you look at when it was created in the early 1980s, that was most likely at the time when the scourge of arcades were, you know, destroying the youth of America in the late 70s and 1980s, and there was probably some desire by the council at that time. Again, we need to do more research to put some restrictions and licensure requirements around arcades.
Through you, Madam Chair, I do understand that, you know, P rhymes with T. It stands for trouble. But I think I appreciate the efforts, and again, I just hope that again, some of these don't have to come through requests from restaurants that, I mean, they have enough struggles going on to, to run their businesses, and hopefully we can be sort of looking forward and trying to eliminate a lot of those restrictions. So thank you.
Are there any other questions from any other council members? Okay. There is something in here, which I'm sorry, I'm having trouble getting some of the attachments to open, but when I've read through it, it's based on square footage, correct? Like how many pool tables you could have, and then there's a perimeter around, like a space that has to be around it, I believe. Is that correct?
I would defer, thank you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Dumais for that question.
I'm sorry, and I'm trying to find it in here, but
You-
sorry, go ahead.
Yes, that is correct, Madam Chair. So section 177.31 within the zoning ordinance establishes a density limitation on the number of amusement devices allowed in a commercial establishment, and it puts a cap at not more than 7 devices per establishment. On top of that, it also provides for you cannot have an amusement device at a ratio of more than 1 device per 700 square feet of floor area in an establishment. And then for any such amusement device, it establishes a kind of a zone of safe play around that device of 4 feet on all sides. So we would also look at that and see if that's still warranted. There might be some logic into creating a cap or a threshold for devices as part of an establishment, because we don't want to create a back end indoor recreation amusement facility that's called something else. So we would look at that and discuss that with you at a future meeting as part of this ordinance review.
Okay, thank you. So Rick, how do we need to take a vote, or do we just say we're willing?
So based on this conversation, Madam Chair, we would propose to, for us working with Corporation Counsel's office, to make some recommended amendments to the ordinances that we've discussed this morning. And we'd bring it back to the February meeting. Assuming everything was okay at that meeting, we could receive it at the following council meeting to set for a public hearing, if that's okay with the committee.
Okay. Are there any objections from the committee on moving forward? Okay. Now we can move on to item C under business items, which is number 2 on the agenda, community rating system and floodplain management discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So it's probably been 2 years, if I remember correctly. So since we last discussed our community rating system, and that was via an ordinance change that we were making at the time to remain eligible for a certain rating classification within the community rating system. So what we wanted to do this morning is to give the committee and council kind of a brief overview on both the community rating system and the floodplain management. So again, through you, Madam Chair, I will turn it back over to our town planner, Mr. Dumais.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. The community rating system, it's a voluntary program within the National Flood Insurance Program, which is administered by FEMA. The town has participated in this program for several decades, and communities within Connecticut that choose to participate in the program do so with the intent to minimize flood risk and damage within their communities and create more resilient communities that are resistant to the impacts of flooding events. And the way the system works is there are a number of programmatic activities in which communities can look at participating in and activities they can look to achieve that reduce flood risks. For each activity that a community completes or does on an annual basis, we are credited a certain amount of points. Those point systems eventually translate into insurance discounts for ratepayers or members of the community that choose to or are required to carry flood insurance on their properties. This is very similar to a town's fire rating through that point system. And what we are doing within West Hartford is managing our floodplain and then also providing a lot of information, notice, and services to our community. Within Connecticut, there are approximately, and this could be slightly out of date, but as of 2024, mid 2024, there were 19 towns that participated in this program. And just to participate, you could be a level 10 community, meaning that you've chose to participate. And then for each class of category within the program, so the community system is rated from class 1 through class 10, class 1 being the highest. On each class, you achieve different credit points, and those credit points apply directly to a discount on insurance premiums. So if you're a homeowner that has a property and your home touches a floodplain as defined by FEMA, so you're within a 100-year zone where you're likely to see a flooding events, 1 in 100 years, you're required, and you have a mortgage, you're required to carry flood insurance. By participating in this program and based on your community's rating system, that insurance premium is reduced in its rate depending on the community's class. In West Hartford, about a year ago, we were upgraded from a class 8, which results in a 10% discount to insurance premiums for property owners, to a class 7. So that's a 15% discount. This is a pretty significant achievement for the community. To date, there are only 4 communities in the state of Connecticut that are class 7. There are no, at least to my knowledge, there are no class 6 or higher. So we're one of the top 4 in the state of Connecticut for participation in the community rating system. What does that mean? Well, that means a couple of things. We continue to maintain flood information and provide information to property owners on a recurring basis. Actually, this week and next week, we'll be mailing out several hundred letters to property owners that are adjacent to or that their properties contain floodplain or they're along a water course. With that notification comes information, publications from FEMA about how they can protect their home from flood damages. It includes information about ensuring and monitoring if you have a stream or a water course in your backyard to ensure there's no debris being dumped in the water course or that it's maintained free, the channel is free for water flow. And then on the regulatory side, what that means and what the council might see on a somewhat routine basis, and certainly the Planning Commission, is when developments occur, we have a set of regulations, 177.8 within our zoning. Those regulations provide for limitations or outright restrictions on development within floodplain. And what they say is, if you're going to develop in a floodplain, first, let's try not to. Second, let's try not to fill or reduce the volume of the floodplain on a particular property. And if those two things can't be achieved and we're improving a structure, it requires new homes or substantial improvement on properties to be raised above the flood elevation so that if there is a flooding event, that home and its contents would be above the base flood elevation and its risk reduced for damage. So most recently, the 1700 and the 1800 Asylum Avenue wetland applications that went through the Planning and Zoning Commission, each of those involved work in the floodplain. And the floodplain, in both instances, there were some modifications whereby there was cuts and fills in the floodplain, which were reviewed from a technical standpoint through a somewhat complicated review process to ensure the volume of the floodplain was not diminished and that there would be no adverse flood events, floodwaters pushed onto adjacent properties. That type of review is conducted for large projects all the way down to small homeowner projects. And I always explain it with this analogy. If you have a bathtub and you fill it with water, if you drop a large weight in that bathtub, as you drop the weight in the bathtub, the water rises and it can spill out of the tub. So that weight is analogous to building a building or putting fill in a floodplain. And the purpose of our participation in reducing the flood risk to properties throughout the community is to preserve floodplains throughout the community. So that's my somewhat brief kind of introduction and re-review of our efforts for the CRS participation. And I just wanted to highlight the fact to the members of the council that West Hartford is high achieving within the state of Connecticut as being one of only 4 communities that are Class 7 rated by the system.
Are there any questions from our committee members? No? Are there any questions from any other council members? Mayor Cantor.
Hi, thank you, Todd. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Todd. This is really, I remember last year, it's a significant achievement, and I want to thank you and the obviously our volunteers on planning all the work that they do for our community to make sure that we're doing what is in the best interest of the whole community. And I'm really grateful. How long is this effective, and how often do they, like, is this now, are we 7, and do we have guidelines on how to go to 6? And if you said that you don't think anybody is at 6, but are there other things that we should be doing? And is that 20%? Like, what's the next? Or is this kind of where we need to be, and we're happy here?
Madam Chair, through you to the mayor, it's a great question. Actually, this is something that every year we provide an update and an audit on our activities back to the rating agencies, whereby we document that we're still continuing to participate. Every 5 years, we are subject to something called a cycle visit. So that's a visit whereby members of the ISO community and FEMA come to the community, and they audit all of our processes and our activities. And at that time, we can choose to participate or achieve different points to try to get additional rating increase. And that's something that's on our radar. In the Plan of Conservation and Development, we actually identified that back in 2020 as a desire to upgrade from 8 to 7. But it doesn't mean we need to stop there. So if we look at where we are rated at our last cycle visit, we are a couple hundred points below a Class 6. It's not impossible to achieve, but with a 5-year cycle, we could probably make efforts if we choose to do so as a community to working towards that Class 6 rating. But our current rating will take us through our next cycle visit, which is a few years out.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay. I just want to say thank you for both your presentations today. And I think that you're staying on for our executive session, but thank you very much. Our next communications, do we have any communications?
We do not, Madam Chair. And next up, we would have a visitor who's been away from us for a few months, been out on leave, but we are all certainly thrilled to have our Director of Community Development back with us. He was back up and running on December 23rd, and he's not stopped running since. So do want to welcome Dwayne back to this committee as well as to the town, and really want to thank our acting co-directors during Dwayne's absence, Todd Dumay, our town planner, and our town engineer, Greg Summer, who did a phenomenal job of keeping us moving forward. And we've talked as a team, both in this committee and other committees, as well as at council meetings, in terms of the work that was accomplished over the last year or so. So want to really thank Mr. Dumay and Mr. Summer for their efforts and hard work and commitment to keeping us and our team moving forward during Dwayne's absence. So through you, Madam Chair, I will turn it over to Mr. Martin, who can give us a quick summary of this month's Community Development Report.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. I appreciate those kind words. And I second the great work of Mr. Summer and Mr. Dumais. I would be remiss if I didn't say that Mr. Dumais is out sick today. And he still reported into this meeting and did a fantastic job. So thank you, Mr. Dumais, if you are still able to hear me. I'll be brief. I just want to cover a couple projects, and I apologize if this is not new information to you. I'm still getting caught up on all the wonderful work of the Community Development Department. So the two projects that I'm going to touch on, and I can touch on more or answer any questions on any projects that you may have. The two projects are the Center Infrastructure Master Plan. I'm going to give a quick update, and then Vision Zero, which I won't dive too deep into because I think you've been updated on that one in more detail. So for the Center Infrastructure Master Plan, you may be aware that we have signed a contract with Gerber Construction and have met with them. They are eager to start in the spring, which is fantastic news. They are a qualified contractor. We're happy that they bid on the project and are the low bidder. We are out to bid currently for a construction management consultant, which is going to be a huge piece to this puzzle. Working in the town center is not a picnic, as I'm sure all of you can imagine. We have done work in the center, as have many others, but usually those projects are fairly short. We did have a water main project by the MDC that went a while, and there were some challenges with that. This is more complicated than that. The reconstruction of LaSalle Road and Farmington Ave to improve it for all users and focusing on safety and not harming those businesses along the way is a huge challenge. And we are up for that challenge. We are prepared. Construction management team will be very valuable in handling day-to-day concerns and issues that may arise. So we want to get that construction management team on board as soon as possible. The bid opening for the construction management is January 31st. So that's coming up in about 2 weeks. Hopefully that goes as well as the construction contract bid opening did. We're going to move on that as quickly as we can. I mentioned the contractors eager to start in the spring. I don't know that we have a date, but probably as the weather breaks, and they will start on LaSalle Road. We are working on a phasing plan as we promised those business owners not to just shut the road down and essentially close access. We don't want to do that. We want to keep the road open as best we can during construction. However, we don't want to start construction without updating everybody. And I know people are aware of the design and people are aware of that we'll start on LaSalle and in the springtime, but we don't just want to show up and start construction unexpectedly. So there will be an outreach effort again. We're still formulating the plan as to what that is. It will probably be in the form of a stakeholder meeting, but we're not quite sure yet. More to come on that. Okay, any questions on the center infrastructure construction that's coming up?
Mayor Cantor.
Just not a specific question. It just that I would really, first of all, welcome back, and it's so great to see you. And thank you for Mr. Dumais and Mr. Summers for all the work. It's really been very calm here, so there's been nothing happening. Teasing. We are, I hear all the time how concerned the businesses are, and actually visitors to the center are about the potential disruption. So I know you're going to be doing outreach. I just would really love for, the feedback to come to the council, just to have those communications full cycle, even if it's weekly, just to have kind of, have updates and understanding of what's happening, what challenges are coming. And obviously the construction management choice is so critical, and someone that has done something. I don't know if there's anything like this actually, but it's something similar and really understand. No, you're going to choose someone that understands the priorities, but the anxiety is high, and I just want to make sure that we're just in the loop, so we're not surprised by any challenges, because we know there will be. It's, it's like redoing your kitchen, right? So thank you.
I can offer a comment on that. I share those concerns, and I have for a while. When this project blossomed into a much bigger construction design and project, and we had those outreach meetings with the stakeholders, we heard it loud and clear, and I wanted to offer that reassurance to them, but also the staff. The amount of complaints and concerns, emails, phone calls, counter visits that we would have to deal with, and may still to some extent through the construction, would be very challenging for us. And so there was a lot of relief when the idea of a construction management company came to be, both with the town staff and with the business owners. So we're happy for that. And yes, we are going to vet the construction management vendors and pick one that's appropriate. Hopefully we have a lot of interested ones. I think we will. It's an exciting project, so it could be great for somebody's portfolio. There have been construction management vendors or consultants, if you will, that have worked in the town before. We had one for the Park Road interchange project that worked out really well. For the same reason, there was just so much activity, and utility companies have utilized them as well. So it's not a new idea. It's something that we want to foster for this project, and hopefully it goes over well. Our hope is to get a construction management team on board, and with the contractor have the outreach. And that way we have answers to all the questions. That's worked in the past. Now with construction management, we've had contractors attend outreach meetings, and it's been fantastic. We did it as an example for the North Main Street Bridge project. Questions that we didn't anticipate that we wouldn't have been able to answer. And when you tell somebody, oh, I'll get back to you with that answer, sometimes that just doesn't go over so well as far as confidence in the management. So anyway, that was a long answer to your question. Thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions?
Are there any other questions? Okay, before we move on, I'd just like to also say welcome back. We've missed you. Sure that we'll have some things to talk about in the very near future. Mr. Ledwith, do we have any future agenda items, or does anyone have any future agenda items? Okay, seeing none, without objection, I move that we enter into executive session for the purpose of discussing a legal memorandum. Are there any objections? Okay, seeing none, we will be moving into executive session, and I invite, I'm not sure, Dwayne, are you going to the executive session? If
I
so,
will. I'll leave that to others to decide. I can or can't. If you think I should be there, maybe Gina, great. If not, that's fine.
I just want to make sure you had the link if you are planning on going. Corporation Counsel, our town manager, and our town planner, and then obviously committee members and counselors. You should have received another link. Does everyone have that before? And I will need at least 2 people, or I will come back, and Deputy Mayor Winograd, if you can come back, we have to come back to adjourn the meeting. So we will see you at the next link.
The camera's acting weird. I can't hear you either.
I was muted, that's why you couldn't hear me.
Well, okay, then that's okay.
Yeah,
I-
I was just talking. I couldn't
Right.
see you, you couldn't hear me,
There
so.
you go. The screen was really weird. It showed other people muted when they weren't muted. It's all really weird today.
Well, also your screen went to a weird thing for a second, like it was like white.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So anyhow, I make a motion to adjourn.
No objection.
Okay, I'll
See
see
you in a
you
little bit.
later. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye. Thanks, Rita.